A rocket scientist is an aerospace engineer who specializes in the design and manufacture of spacecraft. This scientist works within the principles of science and engineering to create vehicles that fly within or above the Earth's atmosphere. Our rocket scientist is Aisha Bowe. When we use the words rocket scientist, we are usually casually referring to an extremely smart person. Those really smart people exist in the noble profession. We have one of them as our guest, a former NASA rocket scientist with Bahamian heritage, who is headed to outer space. We are counting down the minutes to liftoff in the studio. Tonight, our topic is Aisha Bowe, Beyond the Blue. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you on the other side of this break.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
And welcome back, Aisha Bowe. Beyond the Blue is our topic. The lady herself joins me in studio. Aisha is a former NASA rocket scientist and currently the founder and CEO of STEMboard, a tech company recognized by Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest growing companies in America. That's a mouthful. Welcome to On the Record and welcome home.
Thank you.
I like to put things into context. We met 2 years ago while I was in Washington shooting a show around the time of the inauguration. And we had such a fascinating conversation at the time. I knew that there was something special about you and the work that you were doing. And I think we talked for the longest time even after our interview. And that appeared in a previous On the Record show. But when I saw that, you had become the first African-American woman to take flight in outer space on the Blue Origin spacecraft, that really said to me that you had hit a pinnacle. And it has been such a proud moment for Bahamians from that announcement to now. But even in telling people you were coming on the show, they were so excited by the opportunity to hear from you and hear your story and learn a little bit more about who you are. So we're going to spend an hour talking about all those things. But first of all, let's give a little background to the audience. Who are you? Where were you born? Where did you grow up, etc.? Your parents? Like Bahamian people say, who are your people? Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm definitely getting that a lot lately. I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but my father came to Michigan after graduating from St. Anne's.
Very good school.
I thought you might like that. To City College, and there he met my mother. So my mother is American, but I spend a lot of time here in the Bahamas. My dad is one of 9, and so I really consider the Bahamas to be home, and I'm heavily invested in education and outreach here for many years. People would recognize me from the Hackett camps. When I was in school, I didn't have any concept of what I was doing. Like, I'm still surprised that I'm like a reasonably responsible human being that has a career. Because I didn't decide to be an engineer until I was 18. I was in community college, and I thought I was gonna be in business because that's what all people do, right? They study business, and then they become successful. But I wasn't good at economics, and economics has math in it. And so what I realized at the time was that I had spent so many years listening to what other people told me about myself. They told me that I wasn't likely to be successful in college because I wasn't a good high school student. And because I wasn't a good high school student, I thought I couldn't be good at life.
So at what point, though, you're in community college and you start out wanting to do business. And then I guess you had an epiphany or something happened. How did you transition?
So I wish I could tell you that it was like this magical moment, but it was actually a low point. My friends stopped wanting to hang out with me because I think their parents were concerned that I wasn't going to be anybody. And it was that thing like, don't hang out with her, right? So she's not going to college. I don't think she's really going to go anywhere. And so my circle started to become really small. And I didn't really have any hope, like no hope. And so one day I sat down and I said, I've spent so much time feeling bad. I just want to feel good. And so I kid you not, I took out this piece of paper and I wrote out my dream life. Like, what would you do if you felt good? And I made it up. And on my list, I said, well, I really want to go to college because if I go to college, I think people will respect me. And if I go to college, I want to go to a good college. And while I'm there, I want to study something really hard because I want to show people that I am amazing. And so all of those things on that list was like, okay, well, we'll go to University of Michigan because it's the closest thing. And if I go to Michigan, I'm going to be an engineer. And if I'm going to be an engineer, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. Because I always loved science fiction and the idea of the moon and the stars. And that was my list. That was literally my dream list on the back of my bedroom door. And I used to pray over it every single day. And I would pray so hard I kind of squeeze myself, right? You ever pray so hard you can feel it in the center of your body? And that's what I did. And a funny thing happened. I started to realize that if you truly believe in the impossible, it will become possible. And step by step, I started to make progress in my life. I went from community college to university. And I went from university to being an aerospace student. And so on and so forth. And so really my message, because people will be like, oh, well, you're brilliant and a genius. Yeah, but I work hard. And I'm here to just show people there's no limit.
So you went on to University of Michigan. Mm-hmm. You decided to get your Bachelor of Science, correct,
yes,
in aerospace engineering. And then what?
Well, funny thing, when I was in undergrad, I realized that people were making more money if they got a master's degree. And so I was like, okay, that's practical. I like money. I should stay. So I stayed there. And when I was there, I started to realize that I really liked space. I wanted to work on spacecraft and satellites because the undergrad that I was doing is mostly airplanes, which airplanes are cool, but I like spacecraft. And so I started studying satellites, and NASA came. And NASA gave a presentation, and everybody in the class applied, but I didn't. I had no confidence and no self-esteem, so I didn't apply. And the guy from NASA was like, why didn't you apply? And I told him I was a transfer student and I was afraid that he wasn't going to accept me. And he was like, but you have all this amazing life experience and you've overcome. We really want to see your resume. And so I finally turned over my resume and that's how I got the job.
So tell us about NASA and your time at NASA. Because I remember reading your bio 2 years ago. And I was like, well, this is incredible just to be able to work there.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not a place, it's not like a Ford Motor Company or, where a lot of people work. Mm-hmm. So what was that experience like for you? What did you do?
It was incredible. My first day on the job, I could not believe that I was supposed to be there. I kept looking at my badge and it felt unreal. While I was there, I worked on satellites the size of a shoebox, literally this big. And I also had an opportunity to work on aircraft trajectory optimization, which doesn't come up very often, but it's the flight paths that commercial aircraft take. So all of my publications are in trajectory optimization, especially when you look at making the airspace more green. How do we save on fuel economy? How do we reduce emissions? Things of that nature. So that was my focus area. But I spent a lot of time as well working on satellites. And so I worked a few satellite missions. I had an opportunity to travel around and go to some of the launch sites. And I fell in love with the idea of breaking boundaries and barriers. And I always wanted to be an astronaut.
So, boundaries and barriers. Mm-hmm. You're an African-American woman with Bahamian heritage working in NASA.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because typically we think of science and scientists and these kinds of things, or they're traditionally thought of, I wouldn't say I do, they're traditionally thought of as jobs that men do or guys work?
Yeah, we got a lot of guys, you know. Engineering's got a lot of men. If you're looking for a man, you can find him in engineering, I can tell you that. But when people ask me that, I always kind of have to smile because it gave me an opportunity to leave a mark. And as somebody who went in and was initially feeling like, oh, I don't know if I can make it here, not only did I make it, but I made the industry and I made the experience better for people who were to come behind me. You may not know this, but I actually hired a Bahamian to intern for me when I was at NASA, full ride, flew him all the way out to California to work in Silicon Valley. And because I was in that position, I got to broaden what people thought about when they thought about African Americans, when they thought about women, and when they thought about people from the general Caribbean area. And I love that because now people look at that and they're like, oh, we're amazing. That is excellent, right? Oh, you're going to hire another Aisha Bowe? Go ahead, do that.
I have to ask because I try to, envision how your Bahamian heritage, how your years in the Bahamas, this culture, how that played out in the workplace. I always say to people that as a Bahamian, I think this is probably true of every nation, but we see things differently.
Yeah.
So I'm just very curious as to how that Bahamian influence played out in your career.
It was really important because one of the things that Bahamians have are manners. And we're very thoughtful generally as people. We think about all aspects of a problem. And so what I realized was it wasn't good enough to just be good on paper, but I needed to be a well-rounded professional. And so I went the extra mile. I volunteered for organizations. I sat on boards. I went out. I was part of speaking. And you see that very heavily in a lot of Bahamian youth, right? They're part of a lot of organizations. They're not only pro athletes, but they're scholars and they're orators and all these things. And so those skill sets really helped me because at work, what made me stood out was not just my ability to perform on paper, but my persona, who I was when I entered into a room, how I dealt with conflict and challenges, and how all of my thinking was always global. It was always very wide and very broad and inclusive.
You made a decision to leave NASA, and I'm sure that was not met, that was not greeted, or people didn't think that was a wise idea at the time. Why did you do it?
I was going out talking to students, and every time they saw me, they were just like stuck on the fact that I even existed. Like I would go to a classroom, and they would literally be like, there's no way that you're an aerospace engineer. I'm like, I am. And your teacher invited me, and I'm supposed to be here. They would question me so much that I could barely get to why I was supposed to be there. And so I used to carry my degrees in the trunk of my car because the students needed to see proof. I'm like, you don't ask these other guys that come into the classroom for proof, but you need proof from me. And so I had this moment where I said, I love what I'm doing, but I want women, I want minorities, and I want people in the Bahamas to dream bigger, to dream that they too can be part of this mission so that nobody ever looks at me and is like, you don't fit. And so being at NASA, I could do some of that, but I could do more of that if I left. And let me tell you, I love my mom, but she was not a fan. She did not talk to me. Literally, I think she thought I was gonna be broke and living in my car. She didn't talk to me for like months. And now she's like, I always knew you were going to be the best. I'm like, okay.
Well, I guess parents like to be able to have those bragging rights. My daughter works at NASA, and so I'm sure that was a bit tough for her. But walking away from an institution like NASA, the prestige, the recognition, what was that like? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are watching and thinking, I like what I do, but... Yeah. And it's always the fear factor. So I want to talk a little bit about that stepping into the unknown, and what was that like for you?
I was terrified. I think I was afraid every single day, consistently for like the first probably 2 years, because I did not know how it was going to work. I just knew that I wanted it to. And when I started talking to my family, what I realized was that they didn't have a blueprint for what my life would be like outside the umbrella of the prestige and what they thought was like a guaranteed pension. And so there was an opportunity there for me again to be different, to pave a way for other people and hopefully inspire them to do the same, because you cannot be what you cannot see. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to build a globally recognized company that is going to be the financial engine for global change. And people laughed, but they laughed too when I said I was going to be a rocket scientist, and here we are, right?
And we're about to go to the break, so I'm going to ask this really, really short. At any point on that journey, did you think, I made a mistake?
Yeah, lots of parts of the journey. I don't know if we have enough time, but the first 3 years were so hard. It took nearly 5 years from when I left my job to get the company up and running to the point where I could leave and work full time and feel like not only could I take care of myself, but I really started to show people that this business was going to be something for the world to watch.
Good stuff. So that's a good place for us to take that first break in the show. We're at the end of just our first segment. We have lots to talk about with our rocket scientist, our very own Aisha Bowe. On the Record returns right after this break. You're watching On the Record. Welcome back. Our guest is rocket scientist Aisha Bowe, who is all set to go to outer space. We return now to our discussion. We're talking about Beyond the Blue. You're somewhat a serial entrepreneur. Let's start with STEMboard, one of your companies. So tell us a little bit about that.
STEMboard provides engineering consulting services. When I left NASA, I had to figure out how to make money. And I said, you know what, I'm an engineer, and so I think people pay for engineering. So I connected it, and it ended up working out really well because we transitioned into providing engineering services for large federal clients. My company operates, we have employees in multiple states, and we are a national prime contractor for the US government, which buys a lot of stuff.
What is it like for an African-American woman to run a company in the United States?
It's dynamic. It's a uniquely challenging experience. It's something that I really wish that more people would aspire to do, because as much as there are challenges, the heights, I mean, the joy, it brings me so much joy to see people who say, you know, I've worked for you for 5 years. I have a 401k plan. I have health. I have all of these things because you dared to build a company that could not only provide but also give back. For many years, STEMboard directly invested in education and outreach and became so successful that I had to create a whole new business in order to house that company.
You are one of few African-American women who've raised over $1 million. In 2022, you raised nearly $2 million in venture capital to fund Lingo, a self-paced coding kit for learning technical concepts at home. Tell us about Lingo.
Lingo started right here in the Bahamas. The Lingo was designed to be a self-paced coding kit because I came to the Bahamas and I noticed that the students wanted to understand how to build their own companies, how to innovate, how to use their intellectual talents in order to make the Bahamas a better place, or Bahamas 2.0 as I call it. But they may not have had the same access and exposure that I did in the United States. And so 7 years ago, we took STEMboard, the revenue, and invested it here in the Bahamas. And since then, we've had nearly 100 students each year that come to Hackett Camp. They break into teams, they build their own Bahamian-centric businesses, and then they compete for prize dollars. And the ideas that they come up with are amazing. And so I'm really dedicated to taking the model that I started in the United States and giving it to Bahamian youth so that they too can become entrepreneurs and who knows, maybe a billionaire.
After that camp is done and they've had that experience, what are some of the biggest inhibitors that you've seen from them taking the concept, the idea, and actually creating the business?
Yeah, so what I really hope will happen is an ecosystem. In the US, they have accelerators and they have incubators that are designed to move businesses to the next phase. For many of our students, access to capital, frictionless payment, being able to have mentorship, those sorts of things which existed in the US may not be as readily available to them here. We're going to have Hack It Again next year, and I would invite anybody that can see this conversation and who maybe is part of that to reach out, because we want to connect the students to the next step. They are ready, and I truly believe that if they're invested in, they can become the future of not only the Bahamas, but of the world. There's no reason why we can't take Silicon Valley and put it here.
Fantastic concept. And I do know that some of your former students from camps have gone on to do great things.
Yeah. One of the students actually was behind the venture capital raise that I recently executed. Over the course of this year, I've raised nearly $2 million to expand the same lingo coding kit that was started here to the entire world. We have sold over 5,000 in 10 countries. In fact, the Ministry of Education in Bermuda made us their STEM solution, and I just came back from the SEED program in Grand Bahama, where they are using lingo right now today at multiple schools to teach coding and engineering concepts. And my student, Stephen Seymour, was like, hey, Aisha, if you're gonna do this raise, I wanna see the deck, I wanna coach you, and I wanna help you through that. And so all of the process, whether it's starting the technology here or raising the money, all comes back to the Bahamas.
You are a firm believer in not telling people your dream, but showing it to them. Explain that to us.
I think that often the people who love us the most have difficulty seeing what we're capable of. As I said earlier, when I went to start the business, my mom, I guaranteed she loves me, but she couldn't imagine a world within which I was running 2 multi-million-dollar companies and going to space. But I knew that I had the potential. And so for those of you out there who are dreaming, who want to do these big things, do not get discouraged when somebody says, no, I don't think so. That's okay, because one day they'll say to you, I knew you could do it. Hold it in, keep it, and keep pushing.
What has kept you going? I'm sure, you've spoken a little bit about it already, but what is it that's kept you going despite your setbacks and despite some of the stereotypical barriers I'm sure that you meet? Yeah. Because, we all have dreams. I would hope that we all do. We all aspire to things, but it's so easy sometimes to get discouraged. But I look at you and others look at you and you think, wow, there's the model for success. How do you keep going, keep pushing, even when people tell you no, when you fall down, and inevitably when things fail? Yeah.
Well, firstly, I pray. You gotta pray. Every single day I get up and I'm like, Lord God, give me the strength, right? To overcome and to be better than the challenges that lay before me every single day, because it takes a lot. But what I realize is that we're so used to the concept of resistance in the gym, right? You want to work out, you want to build muscle, you got to lift heavy, you got to work hard. But life is like that as well. And sometimes there's a lot of resistance before a breakthrough. And so for me, I focus on the small wins. I've always wanted to go to space, but I understood that before I got there, there were things that I needed to do in order to make a mark. And I just focus on that piece, just the little piece, and that piece becomes a bigger piece, and eventually you see these large accomplishments. But I would be kidding if I told you that when I started out, I thought that this was going to be my life plan. I didn't. I just focused on what I could accomplish, and I went from there.
How much support do you get from your family? I know that you've just come back from Grand Bahama from your camp. Your uncle drove you here, your family. Tell me a little bit about your family support, because I think sometimes we don't realize how important that is.
It's incredibly important. Family and friends. If there's one thing that's really gotten me through is kind words. I remember, I was not a perfect student. I had a 2.7 in high school, and I nearly flunked out of pretty much most of the classes the first semester in aerospace because I was learning high school and aero at the same time. And I remember my sister picked me up and she gave me this card with a lemon on it, and the lemon said, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And it was just such a small thing, but it meant so much because she didn't see the setback. She saw that I could come back. And here, when we look at Hackett Camp, for 7 years, my one uncle caters. My other uncle is the bus driver. My other uncles send their children. My other uncle, works and tries to help us with the funding. I mean, it really is a labor of love on behalf of the Bowe family for the community. And when things are hard, behind the scenes, between interviews with people like you, Jerome, they reach out and they just give me a little bit of word of encouragement. And so does the community. I mean, I have to give a shout out to all the people in the Bahamas behind the scenes who have been working day and night to make this dream a possibility, because there have been a lot of conversations that have happened off the record to make sure that I could even get here.
Interesting. And I've got, I want to talk, we're going to save the space trip information for the next segment, but what has the outpouring been like since your announcement? I mean, I found out on Facebook. What has it been like? I think it took you 2 days to respond to me when I messaged you.
Listen, I thought my phone was going to melt. It was so hot. My phone just kept jumping on the table. And the next thing I know, I'm hearing from people from all over the world. Like literally everybody that I think that ever met me said something nice. I had over 300,000 people interact with the sole LinkedIn post. And the outpouring of just love and support from the Bahamas has been incredible. And let me tell you, I could not imagine a better group of people to be behind me. I've talked to other astronauts, and they have not received as much outpouring of love and support, and I'm so motivated. My mission is to not only make a mark, and I will have a Bahamian flag with me. And oh, by the way, you guys have to stay tuned because the plans for the 50th, I can't spill all the beans here. Wonderful. But let's just say there will be something special for the Bahamas during the 50th year here that has to do with space. It's been incredible, and I'm grateful. And for those of you who are not following me, please do. I need your prayers. I need your encouragement. Because while people may think, oh, this looks easy, it is a challenge. I was in Grand Bahama yesterday. I'm here today. I'm in Detroit tomorrow. But all of that in hopes to educate, to elevate, and inspire. I'm just going to stick a pin for a moment and say thank you for coming. It's been, we've been communicating a long time to get you here, and I thank you for that, and thank you for even just getting you here today was a hurdle. You were the focus of a recent documentary called In Her Element. Yeah. Tell us about that. Reese Witherspoon has a production company, and they picked me. I almost fell out of my chair. When they sent me the email, I said, wait a second, is this real? Like, do you ever get an email and you think that it came from a Nigerian prince and you're just not sure?
Yeah, invest your money. Uh-huh.
Yes. I was like, wait a second, this is incredible. In Her Element features 3 women. It's designed to be a documentary style so it can be shown in classrooms. And it's 10-minute segments around STEM. One of the ladies is a performer who was on tour for Kanye for years. Another one is in the equivalent of Formula One for electric car racing. And then there's me. I'm in it. And it's on Apple, so you can get it on Apple TV. It's on Prime Video. It's on Roku. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere. And I'm just so excited and so proud to not only be able to represent women, but Black women, but the Bahamas on Prime Video.
When you are representing this country, when people find out you're from the Bahamas, what is that experience like for you? And I always say that we're such a small but powerful little nation with just really interesting and incredibly talented people. But what is that like for you to be able to represent the Bahamas? And you're talking about taking the Bahamian flag in space or whatever in space. I thought about that this morning when I was getting ready. I was like, I wonder if she's going to take a flag in space.
I am. I already took the flag to Kilimanjaro. So I summited Kilimanjaro. New Year's Day 2017, had my flag with me. This time, and I've negotiated, I will also have a flag. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. We're going to get a video of that on orbit. But I'll also be carrying some other things, which will be space rated as well. I think it's just an honor. I am so honored to have the opportunity to represent not only my name and my family, who comes from Exuma and has gone through so much in order to make a way for me to be here, but for everybody who has a dream. I didn't think that this life was possible, but it is, and I'm here, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to share that with the world.
Did you ever, I mean, you aspired to be the aerospace engineer, you aspired to be, or to have your own company. Once you've come back, then what? Once the space trip is done, what's next for you?
Well, I would like to make it possible for other people, and I really would like to run and invest in companies that are founded here in the Bahamas. What I'm working on now is growing Lingo to be a billion-dollar entity. We are scaling fast. We are being used by school districts. We have curriculum replacement. As I mentioned, as we speak, one of the camps that we support is happening in Grand Bahama. Students are learning from my content now. I want to take that mission globally with the same things that we started here. And then after that, I want to spend my time helping other people do the same. And who knows, maybe we'll get a second astronaut.
Who knows? Definitely from the Bahamas. Maybe from another family island. You know, you're representing Grand Bahama. We're going to take our final break here. And when we return, we're going to continue our discussion beyond the blue and address what everyone has been waiting for. Aisha going to space on Blue Origin. We'll be back right after this. You're watching On the Record. Our guest tonight, Aisha Bowe, a real rocket scientist set to travel to space sometime next year. Well, welcome back. Aisha, you have been confirmed as the first black woman to travel on a commercial flight to space with Blue Origin, the private space flight company founded by Jeff Bezos. Firstly, how does it feel?
It's amazing. It feels like a dream. I literally wake up every day and have to remind myself that it's actually happening. Like, I'm like, whoa, you're going to space next year. Oh, it's incredible. I mean, even just saying it, I'm like, wow. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you about going to space next year. Wow.
When you tell us how you found out. I'd like to.
So I actually made a trip down here. And this is part of the gratitude I have for the Bahamas, because behind the scenes, I met with the PM's office because I knew that I was in the running. And so I found out in about the June, July timeframe. And I didn't even know what to say, because when I was selected, I was like, dear heavens, I'm the first person who is an African-American female that's gonna take this journey. Like, what do you say? It's such an honor, and it really made me feel like everything that I had experienced in life was worth it. All those things that I thought that were gonna really be setbacks were all designed to put me in a position to be selected for something that is so incredible that I even have a hard time believing it's still true.
Tell us how this all came about, and did you raise the big fee for travel into space?
So I think that there's a lot of excitement around space, and not just the recent mission to the moon, Artemis, launched the other day, which is incredible, but also that it is now being accessed by a wider group of people than had previously come before. So in the history of like space and people going to space, there have only ever been 4 African-American female astronauts who were selected by NASA. The first starting with May. From there, I will be the first to fly with Blue, and Dr. Proctor was the first to fly with SpaceX. So you're telling me, well, I'm telling you rather, that in the 30 years that there will only have been a total of 6 African American women to have ever made that journey. That is a small, small, small fraction of humankind. And so I think that behind the scenes, there was a lot of discussion around, we want this next generation to feel as though they have a part to play in the story. And in order to do that, we really want to work with people who are inspiring, who want to educate, and who want to be on the forefront as explorers.
What are you looking forward to most in the journey?
I'm looking forward to people telling me what they do because they were inspired by me. I get the best messages. I literally got a message the other day from someone in the Bahamas. Her name is Erica Morris, and she sent me a message on Facebook, and she said, you know, I really have always wanted to start my own business, and I'm gonna try because you inspired me. That gives me so much hope. I want people to say, you know what, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna start a company, I'm gonna raise money, or I'm even gonna have a little food stand and just do what I want to do and live the life that I hope to live because I'm inspired by Aisha. And that is what I'm looking forward to. So like me, send me these stories, send me these dreams. Like, I just want people to live their best lives.
Now, this is a question from someone who gets nervous of flying on a commercial flight.
Yeah.
You know, what are some of the thoughts, I guess, that go through your head in anticipation of this? Are you nervous at all about it? I know you're excited, but, you know, I'd like to know some of the emotions that you feel when you think about this journey you're about to make.
Yeah, I've had a lot of emotions. I went from being super excited to saying, oh my goodness, there's a slim possibility that I might die, and I have to think about that. And so I've started on this path of conquering fears that I have, because I'm comfortable flying, but I don't even like turbulence. Every time it's like,
I cannot, nope. My friends joke about it. So I get you. Yeah.
Even though I'm an aerospace engineer and I understand it's like being a rubber duck in a bathtub, but I've literally started a journey of starting to conquer all these fears. So, I'm looking at skydiving. That scares me. I probably should go ahead and do that. I'm looking at flying on 0G. They fly a bunch of parabolas. They simulate being up in the, anti-gravity style environment. I'm also going to be doing that. And so in an interesting way, this actually has the effect of making me live more. I'm more focused on my health because I want to make sure I maintain my weight and I can fit into my space.
I was going to ask about the weight. Is there a weight requirement, like that kind of thing? Do you have to be, at a particular level in terms of your physical fitness, things like that?
Yeah, so I think that you want to be fit enough in order to sustain all the G-forces, most of which you're taking in your chest, right? So there's definitely going to be some moments there where I feel quite a bit of pressure, but a lot of it is designed to ensure that you are fit in case there's any need to run up a flight of stairs, or if anything happens, if there's any delays. And so a lot of my regime right now is focused on like an anti-inflammatory diet, being consistent, and also cardio, which during the holidays, is like...
There's a toughie.
Yeah, it's sort of a challenge, because every time I come here, it's a 5-pound trip. I eat everything. The little food store across from the airport, I ran straight there as soon as I landed. I'm like, if I cannot get my favorite foods, I will not leave the country. I have to get all of the favorite foods.
So I've got to ask, we're going to go back to space in a moment. What are some of your Bahamian favorites? What are some of the things that you must have when you come home?
Curry chicken. Curry chicken, curry chicken, curry chicken. Fried snapper. I pretty much exclusively just eat fried fish. I absolutely love conch. I have to have conch salad every trip. Like, I'll be headed to the airport with a conch salad. I also like this place that's not too far from Bahamian called the New Duff. Have you been there?
Yes, I know the owner.
They have these like curry buns. It's like the best of both worlds, curry and in a bun, and more curry, which is really great. A lot of the juices and the fruits and things like that, but I love, love, love dessert. I love dessert. So between guava duff and coconut tart,
you couldn't tell that you
I'm
love
basically a
guava
big
duff.
coconut tart. Like, that is me. And sapodilla. I always eat at sapodilla every single time I come here. I have to shout out to them every single time. I always go there.
Well, there is no doubt that you are authentically Bahamian, and I needed to run that test. just to be sure. Just before we get back into the space stuff, what are some of your fondest memories, though, of being a kid and being here and, things Bahamian? What are some of the things that really stick out to you?
My grandma used to give us sticks of sugar cane and then put us in the yard, and I used to love that because I would just be out there with like all of my cousins and like 2 pancakes. It was like, you have the dogs that are not your dog, but they're like the neighborhood dogs.
Of course, and they're in the yard, and
we would just be just out hanging out, and it was just great, right? Going to the beach, going getting food at the fish fry. Like, I love roaming around and just seeing people that I know. And being with family. I mean, even today, like, it's quality time for me because I get off the flight and the first thing I do is hang out with my uncle and go see my grandfather. And I love that. Everywhere here feels like home.
And we're happy to have you home. So what's the name of the spacecraft that you're going to travel on, and who's it named after?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm going to be flying on New Shepard, who's named after Alan Shepard. And what I love about it is it's the legacy of space flight. Naming these types of vehicles is always really historic and significant. And for this company, Blue Origin, they're really making a mark on the future of space travel. We're traveling beyond the Kármán line, which is the internationally respected boundary of space. And I'm in awe, right? I cannot believe that I'm going to have an opportunity to do something that humans dreamed about for generations. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to look up in the sky, because the sky here is different. You can actually see the stars. And I just was saying to myself, in a little less than a year, you're going to be up there amongst the stars.
And looking down at us and saying I was there.
And waving my flag.
Yes. I know that there are a lot of details that cannot be given at this point. Yeah. But what can you tell us about your travel? How far will you travel? Whatever you can give us, because I know a lot of it is still sort of embargoed. But what can you tell us about your travel?
Yeah, well, firstly, I want to tell everybody to stay tuned. The 50th is going to be an amazing year. There's going to be a lot of celebrations here in the Bahamas, but there will also be a special one around the flight. I kind of want to give you behind the scenes, and let's just say that those out there may have the opportunity to see the very same capsule that I may or may not be in here in Nassau. So we'll leave it at that, but. Over the course of the next year, there are more exciting developments to come. This flight is a first, but it's a first for many reasons. And so I invite people to kind of just follow the journey, because the story that's going to unfold is going to be an incredible one. So my producer's saying I should ask you about the Kármán line, is that? Yeah, so the Kármán line is the internationally respected boundary of space, which we will exceed. And that is the limit, right? That is where Earth becomes space. And I'm so excited to have the opportunity to go past that. And I also want to invite, so part of this is a organization called Club for the Future, which is operated by Blue Origin. But for those in the Bahamas who want to participate, they literally will be able to write a postcard that will go into space and that will fly with me, and it will get returned, which is why I'm asking that people stay tuned, follow the mission. For those out there who are teachers, who are working in schools, there's going to be many opportunities to engage and even get their own piece of space returned to them. Now, if folks want to follow you on social media, where can they find you? I know you are always open to followers. I keep up with you by following you on social media, but if folks want to follow you on social media, where can they find you? Yeah, so the first place to go, the place where I spend most of my time and I actually interact with the audience, is Instagram. You can find me, Aisha Bowe, at Instagram. I try to make it really easy. You can also find me on Facebook at Aisha R. Bowe. And I'm also on Twitter at ARBOWE. So follow her in all of her spaces. Your flight comes 30 years after former astronaut, NASA astronaut Mae Jemison became the first black woman to travel to space. That was in 1992. And now you will make history
on Blue Origin. Give us a little bit of the history of Black women in space.
There's only ever been 4 NASA astronauts who are African American women who have flown. There are some other astronauts that may be up for future missions, but 4, that is small. I mean, that is a tiny, 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 tiny fraction. Since commercial spaceflight became an opportunity, there has been 1 who flew with SpaceX, and I'm the first for Blue Origin. I think that means that there's a new world opening. And what I love about that is that brings opportunity. And it's not only just opportunity for people to be astronauts, but it's also people who can work on space missions and contribute to that dream. What I'm the most excited by is that someone's gonna see this conversation and they're gonna say, I want to do that too. And for there to only be 6 with a total of me, that means there's room. There's room for more.
Yeah, you know, I think sometimes you must be looking at my notes, because it's like you lead right into my next question. As we're preparing to wrap up, I want to take you back to your high school days. Your guidance counselor steered you towards becoming a cosmetologist. And let me say, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that career. I have many friends who are in cosmetology who are doing very well. However, what can you say to young people about following their dreams when others, whether it be family, friends, guidance counselors, society, is trying to push them into another area? I always tell the joke that when I told my grandmother I was going to become a journalist, she says, well, why would you want to do that? Why don't you go work at a bank? And I said, Grammy, I can't count. I don't want to get arrested. But seriously, what do you say to young folks who, you know, have a dream, have a desire? As Pastor Miles, like Pastor Miles Monroe used to say, you get up in the morning and that passion is driving you because it's in your head and you can't get rid of it. But what do you say to those young people, or not so young, I mean, whatever age you're at, who have that dream and that desire, but everything else and everyone else is telling them no?
Everything else and everyone else told me no too. And I chose to be unrealistic. And so I want to encourage people to suspend what they think is realistic. I mean, let's go through the resume. Became a rocket scientist, worked for NASA, started not 1 but 2 multi-million-dollar companies, and I didn't have any money to start the first business. I used the money that I made in order to grow it so that I could have the resume to grow and bootstrap into building a company that I could raise money for. And so every single step, somebody told me no, and by not listening to them, I made progress. And so I want to encourage people to truly believe in themselves and to have the courage to, when everybody is telling you that you can't or you shouldn't, to do. Because that is what I hope my legacy is here on this planet. I would love it if everybody would become a rocket scientist, but what I want to leave is this idea that Aisha Bowe did it, and so can I.
That's a perfect way to end the show. First of all, thank you for agreeing. And I just want people to know that persistence pays off. I persisted in saying, I want you to come on the show, I want you to come on the show, so thank you. I just want to express to you on behalf of the Bahamian people how proud we are of you. And really what this means to us as a little country and as a nation to have you represent us in space. We wish you Godspeed. We wish you safe travels and a safe return. We thank you for taking that flag. We're going to be looking for it. We are going to be cheering for you every step of the way. And, you know, thank you for representing us so well and continue to do the great things that you do. And not just that, continue to give back. You have not forgotten your country. That means a lot to us. So thank you very much on behalf of an entire proud nation.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. We thank you so much again for allowing us to be a part of this journey with you, and all the best in space. That's going to do it as well for tonight's show. Be sure and join us again next week for another exciting On the Record as we talk about things that are important to you. Until then, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next time. Same place, same time, right here.